In this video, we're going to be diving into the markets, the question of Bitcoin being into a bull cycle and everything surrounding altcoins. Everything here on your journey, for your journey in crypto, in the bull and bear markets from me. Let's get started. Before we're going to get started with this video, we had a slightly unfortunate event taking place this week. We were expected to upload an altcoin video on Thursday, but on Wednesday, one of our editors got hacked on his Gmail, on his Google account, and through that, our YouTube was hijacked. And maybe you've seen it, but all of a sudden my face was turned into Michaëls. The name was correct, but we were not giving away anything. But because we were taken over and the standard scam video or live stream took place, our YouTube account was deleted for a few days, and it took a lot of energy to get it back. But we are happy to have it back, and we are back on the videos. The altcoin video that we created for Thursday is going to be posted in the upcoming week. So apologies for that delay, but we are already pretty happy to be having back our YouTube account as we decided to move our offices to this office for the studio and to scale up our team to be making more content. And based on that fact, in 3 weeks from now, we are likely going to be posting our first episode of the podcast. We are booking in guests, and I'm very, very excited to start a new journey on YouTube with a lot of new content. So it was a hectic week, but we are there. The markets haven't been doing much, but there were some interesting ones that I would like to discuss with you. And when I talk about the markets not doing much, the markets are still super bad in terms of sentiment. I'm not reading comments, and that's for a reason, probably because of the bearishness that everybody has when it comes to Ethereum and also altcoins. But the yield markets, or the yields on government bonds, and the upcoming elections are pretty much moving the market. So in the past month, the 2-year and the 10-year yields have been going up by 20%, and they have not been rallying to 20%, but from 3.5% to 4.2% is an increase of 20%, and that is massive for the yield market. And that has been impacting Ethereum, and that has been impacting DeFi and altcoins in general. Then this week we had one big event taking place, which was the BRICS Summit. The BRICS Summit is, or a BRICS event. BRICS is technically the competitor of the G20. So BRICS says Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it's slowly but surely expanding into a bigger partnership of more countries. And this event was the biggest to date. 36 countries were at the event, and 22 highest leaders of those countries were at the actual event. And that is interesting because if it starts to grow as it is doing, it can become a significant competitor of the G20. And when you look at the news items that came out of the event, Putin has announced that they are investigating of creating a BRICS currency that is going to be used to do the transactions between all the countries, so they don't need to do transactions in the US dollar. And that is something that I've been discussing multiple times on this YouTube channel, that once the world reserve currency named US dollar is going to be decreasing in market impact, the US dollar is likely going to collapse, and that's why other assets are continuing to do well as a safe haven compared to the US dollar. So if this is going to take place, then likely we're at the end stage of the US dollar being the world reserve currency. And when we talk about this topic, the importance of this is maybe shown in the strength that we see on gold at this stage. Gold has seen a tremendous amount of upwards return during the year, as it is up by more than 30% over the year, reaching new all-time highs and breaking that week after week, in which we're currently at 2.7K as the highest level for gold, where also silver has reached the highest point in more than 4,000 days. So commodities are already going up and Bitcoin is following in tandem, as in the previous 2 weeks we've seen that there was more than 3 billion in inflow in the Bitcoin ETF, showing that institutional investors are likely hedging their position of being in the US dollar by having those assets, knowing that there is a certain risk increase in by having the US dollar. The only concern that we have is that the yields on the US dollar continue to increase, and that's something that we still need to determine. The final thing is that macroeconomic weeks have started at this point, as in this week we've had the PMI data, which is a measurement on positivity or weakness of the markets, actually super fine, so there's no reason for the Fed to assume that they need to do additional rate cuts. And the markets are likely predicting or projecting that there will be one rate cut, while the markets are in that sense relatively bearish on the Fed doing more rate cuts, and that is impacting ETH. Now there are some key events coming up in the coming period that are going to be moving markets by, I think, the biggest of this year, which is the elections. Trump, according to Polymarket, which is having a big French will betting on Trump, is leading by more than 60%. On other websites, it is pretty close to Kamala. We'll see whether Trump or Harris is going to win, but the chances that Trump is winning is slightly more in favor. And if that is going to take place, it will be having a substantial positive impact for crypto as a whole, where I think that regulation is going to push forward the adoption of crypto in the US. Now, next week is also going to be a big week because, as I said, the labor markets are going to move the markets. And if the labor markets are getting weaker, the yields are going to drop because the Fed needs to do more rate cuts, and then the dollar will also drop. And in that sense, upcoming week is going to be unemployment data week, just prior to the elections, which means that the coming 2 to 3 weeks are going to be super important for everybody that is in the markets, as the day after the elections, the Fed is going to announce the rate cuts and also going to announce how they are approaching the future, and forward-looking data will be shown. So I think it's going to be hectic. Maybe we're going to do some more updates, but it's going to be hectic when the markets, after 2 weeks of silence. And I think the few things that you need to be watching is the yields, the dollar, and Bitcoin and gold. And if you do that, you'll be fine. And if you do that, likely we're going to see a lot of momentum coming into the altcoins as well. But for that, we need to check the charts, and that's what we're going to be doing next. Now, the question is, as you can see in the title, is are we already in the bull market for Bitcoin? And you could say the Bitcoin bull cycle has 2 stages, pre-halving, after halving. Pre-halving, we've seen a rally towards a new all-time high due to the liquidity that has been added by the ETF. But it's not like the vertical move that we're all looking for, which Raoul Pal refers as the banana zone. So that's why I've got a few charts here which are important to look at, which is the first one is the nominal versus the real Bitcoin price, which is technically just pricing Bitcoin in purchasing power or using inflation to predict or say the actual price of Bitcoin. And you can see that there's a significant gap between the two, in the sense that if you calculate the inflation and you deduct that from the Bitcoin price, then you could say that Bitcoin is not having a new all-time high. And I've been saying this a few times, that if you look at the actual price of Bitcoin in the US dollar compared or deducted by the inflation, then we're just copy-pasting the previous cycles. So then we've not been seeing a new all-time high. If you're looking at the real price currently, then Bitcoin has been seeing a new all-time high, but Bitcoin it has seen a new all-time high due to the liquidity. But if you look at the inflation-adjusted price, it is just copying the previous cycle, as I said. So if we do that, then we are probably going to have that vertical stage once we break through 60K, if you look at this chart. So the current chart is saying that Bitcoin is currently at $60,000 or less than the all-time high, and we haven't been seeing a new all-time high. And that is in line with the price action that we see. At this stage of the cycle, we have a long sideways period that we've also seen in 2020, and we've also seen that in 2016. So this is just following the path in which you can see that your purchasing power over time is decreasing due to the amount of inflation that we have. From 2020, $1 is currently at 84 cents. So the inflation is significant, and that's something that you need to calculate into the price action of Bitcoin. The second thing is the amount of M2 supply that's being used in the economy to stimulate the markets. And I think that there is still a debate going on of whether the halving or liquidity are the ones that are triggering the markets. If you look at the price action of Bitcoin and you compare it to the global M2 supply, then since 2016, or in the 2016 to 2018 cycle, M2 was significantly going up, as you can see here, in which we peaked at December 2017, which was exactly the peak of M2 supply until that point. And once it started to break upwards again, which was in 2020, until that stage, Bitcoin hasn't been making a new all-time high. And actually during the period where the M2 supply was decreasing, that was the period where Bitcoin has a decreasing price action too. Then in the next cycle, we saw 2020, 2021, that Bitcoin rallied upwards, in which it peaked in February 2022, which means that we've had a peak in November of 2021, but likely we should have going up or continued to go up until February 2022. So there was a change in period over time there, which means that the previous bull cycle, we likely have gone up more than we have seen. And in this cycle, we are likely going to do that again. So there is a twist there, but as long as the M2 supply increases, Bitcoin's price is going to follow. And in this case, you can see that the M2 supply is significantly increasing. So it's just a matter of time until Bitcoin price is going to pick up momentum, which is all depending on the 10-year yields and the 2-year yields. If this is going to reverse down again, as you can see, we've got a slight bounce taking place. We're in a crucial resistance zone. We've got crucial events coming up. The moment that this is going to reverse back down, that's going to be the trigger where Bitcoin is going to start its bull cycle. That is also going to be the trigger where this bad boy, which is called Ether, is finally going to reverse. As you can see, we were looking for a reversal to take place. In the previous updates, I was looking at a bounce above 0.04 Bitcoin, but unfortunately it couldn't break through that resistance level as the yields continue to go up. And therefore Ethereum against Bitcoin continues to have lower lows. And as you can see on the right side, all the altcoins are currently still continuing to fall. And that is completely fine. And I think that the moment that Ethereum finds itself into a support, which might be at 0.035, which might be around the days of either unemployment next week, or it's going to be around the day of the elections, I think that that's the period where we're going to have significant movements on ETH, because DeFi is going to carry the next market. If that happens, then altcoins are going to outperform Bitcoin by a mile. So that's the case. If we look at Bitcoin in general, then I've been making these charts here where I was saying, hey, we have reversed the chart, or we have reversed the trend, because we are making higher lows, higher highs. We can see it here on the left. We had a low at $49,000. We made a new higher low at 52. Then we started making new higher highs, as the recent one is at 69.5. And we continue to show those higher lows. And I think that in the coming 2 to 3 weeks, it is very likely that we're going to make a new all-time high for Bitcoin. And that is also the time where Bitcoin is going to go vertical, or at least starts to accelerate, and when altcoins start to move as well. In this part, we are adding something which we call Michaëls strategy, or vision on what's happening. And sometimes it's relatively difficult to change anything or to explain anything, because it's so boring in the crypto markets and the Google searches are on a low. And if you look at it from that perspective, and I go back in time, 4 years ago, when I was 27 years old, without gray hair, without feeling like a boomer, that was the period where we also experienced the exact same market structure, where altcoins continued to fall down. People were questioning the future of crypto. In this case, we're talking about meme coins solely, which is great, but it's just week after week, it's changing. And I think that shows that Q4 is the bottom. And I think that either we have seen the bottom already or is the final dip taking place in the coming 3 to 4 weeks. But once the yields are going to turn, once Trump and Harris is going to be finalized, the Fed is going to do the rate cuts, or the labor markets are going to be worse, that's going to be the move where the trend is going to shift on the yields and on Bitcoin and ETH. And that is going to be the big trigger. And I think that this cycle is complex, and I think the coming cycles are going to be more complex, which means that this cycle we are also likely going to see whether the 4-year cycle still exists or whether it's going to be depending on the amount of liquidity that's going to be added into the markets. So if you look at it from that perspective, then being positioned at this point is the best thing you could do. And if you are positioned, just have a little bit of patience and just wait it out. If your thesis fundamentally on the projects that you're investing in is still strong and you have written it down and your arguments are fine, then if price continues to fall, it's only a dip opportunity that you want to get into, but it shouldn't be changing your thesis, because if you currently look at those coins and you look at the price action and you question yourself what you would do if you didn't have any position, and if your answer is I would be buying, then your answer is also to keep on holding your positions. So that's what we are doing at this stage. The coming weeks, I said it a few times, are gonna be tremendous in terms of volatility. And from there, I likely expect the markets to be changing. So my strategy is just holding on to my positions. Thank you for watching. We are back on YouTube. That's great. Upcoming week, we're going to do an altcoin video. If you have any comments on things that we can improve or do better, or what you want to see, let it know in the comments beneath. Also subscribe to this YouTube channel, and I'll see you again on Thursday for a new altcoin update. Ciao.